There is a kind of blindness that has nothing to do with the eyes. It is the blindness of a mind that is everywhere at once. That is thinking about the morning while living in the afternoon. That is replaying yesterday while standing in today. That is so full of noise, the noise of worry, of comparison, of distraction, of everything that might go wrong and everything that already has, that it cannot see the one thing directly in front of it with any clarity at all. This blindness does not announce itself. It does not arrive dramatically. It creeps in quietly, the way fog creeps in off the water, and before you notice it, everything you are looking at has edges that have gone soft and uncertain. Most of us live in this fog. Most of us call it being busy, or being stressed, or being realistic, or being human. We have learned to function inside it so completely that we have forgotten what it feels like to see clearly. To be so fully and completely in one moment, doing one thing, that everything else falls away and what remains is something that feels, when it happens, almost miraculous. This is a story about an archer. And it is a story about that feeling. And it is a story about what it costs to find it and what it makes possible once you do. The archer's name, in the version of this story that comes from the ancient Indian tradition, is Arjuna. And if you know anything about the Mahabharata, the vast, extraordinary Sanskrit epic that is one of the longest and most complex works of literature ever produced by any civilization, you know that Arjuna is not a minor character. He is one of its central heroes. A prince of the Pandava clan, trained in the arts of war from childhood, destined for battles whose consequences would reshape the entire ancient world. He is, by any measure, exceptional. And he is the student in this story because even the exceptional, perhaps especially the exceptional, must learn the lesson that this story carries. Drona was the teacher. Dronacharya, to give him his full title, one of the greatest teachers of martial arts and archery in the ancient world, a man whose students would include the finest warriors of an entire generation, a man whose name became synonymous with mastery of the teaching craft itself. Drona was not merely a teacher of technique. He was a teacher of the inner life. He understood something that most instructors of physical skill have never grasped, that the body can only do what the mind allows it to do, and that the mind is almost always the limiting factor, almost always the place where the gap between ordinary and extraordinary lives. One day, Drona gathered all of his students, the princes, the warriors in training, the young men who had been studying under him for years, and brought them to a clearing in the forest. He had prepared something in advance. High in the branches of a tree at one end of the clearing, he had placed a wooden bird. A target. A simple wooden bird perched in the leaves, its form visible but not large, at a distance that was challenging but not impossible. He handed each student a bow and arrow. He told them to take aim at the wooden bird. And then, before any of them could release their arrows, he began to ask them questions. One by one, he went to each student, stood beside them, and asked, "What do you see?" The first student said, "I see the tree, master. I see the sky above it. I see the bird. I see the leaves around it. I see the clearing and my fellow students and the ground beneath my feet." Drona told him to lower his bow. He would not shoot today. The second student said, "I see the tree and the bird, master. The tree it is perched in and the bird sitting in its branches." Drona told him to lower his bow as well. A third said he saw the branch and the bird. A fourth said he saw the bird and the leaves around it. Each time, Drona listened carefully and told the student to lower his bow. Then he came to Arjuna. Arjuna stood with his bow drawn, his arm steady, his eye fixed down the length of the arrow. And Drona asked him, "What do you see?" Arjuna said, without hesitation, without turning his head, without any wavering in the stillness of his body, "I see the eye of the bird, master. Only the eye of the bird." Drona said, "Are you sure that is all you see? Do you not see the tree, the sky, the leaves, the other students?" Arjuna said, "I see only the eye of the bird. Nothing else exists for me in this moment." Drona stepped back. And he said, "Shoot." The arrow flew. And it struck the eye of the wooden bird with a precision that none of the other students, standing with their bows lowered and their minds full of everything they had seen, could have matched. That moment, that exchange between teacher and student in an ancient forest clearing, is the moment this story lives in. It is not about archery. It has never been about archery. It is about the thing that made Arjuna's arrow land where it landed and the other arrows would not have. It is about the quality of attention that sees only the thing that matters and releases everything else, not because everything else does not exist, but because everything else, in this moment, is not relevant, is not here, is not where the life is. Arjuna did not have exceptional eyesight. He did not have arms stronger than his classmates or reflexes faster than anyone else in that clearing. What he had, in that moment, was the complete and undivided gift of his attention. He had chosen, and it is a choice, this is the part that matters, it is always and entirely a choice, to be only here, only in this, only with this one thing that his arrow was meant to find. And in making that choice, he had become capable of something that all the physical skill in the world cannot produce without it. This is the teaching. And it is a teaching that requires you to sit with it carefully, because the world we live in right now is perhaps the most aggressively distraction-producing environment in the history of human civilization, and the teaching asks something of us that our environment is specifically designed to prevent. We live in a world of 1,000 wooden birds. They are everywhere. They hang in every tree in every direction. And they are not silent and patient like Drona's target. They flash and they beep and they notify and they demand and they reward the roving eye with just enough stimulation to keep it moving, just enough novelty to prevent it from settling anywhere long enough to truly see. The average human being in 2024 touches their phone more than 2,000 times a day. The average attention span, according to a widely cited Microsoft study, has dropped below that of a goldfish. These are not just statistics about screen time. They are statistics about the quality of human consciousness. About where we are when we are somewhere. About whether we are ever, actually, anywhere at all. The younger students in Drona's clearing are not foolish. They are not lazy or weak or poorly trained. They see everything they are looking at, the tree, the sky, the leaves, the bird, the clearing, their fellow students. They are fully aware. And that full awareness, that roving, comprehensive, everything at once kind of seeing, is precisely what makes them unable to hit the target. Because the arrow does not care about the tree. The arrow does not care about the sky or the clearing or the other students. The arrow cares only about the eye of the bird. And when the mind behind the arrow is split across a dozen things, the arrow cannot find the one thing it needs to find with the precision that the one thing deserves. The word for what Arjuna has is a Sanskrit word that has no perfect English equivalent. The closest translation is something like one-pointed concentration, ekagrata. It is the ability to gather the entire field of awareness and point it at a single object with a completeness that leaves no remainder. Nothing leaking out toward the past. Nothing leaking out toward the future. Nothing divided among the other things in the visual field or the mental field. Everything here. Everything now. Everything in this one point. The great violinist Yudi Menuhin, who was by any measure one of the most accomplished musicians of the 20th century, described a similar state in terms that would be immediately recognizable to anyone who has read about Arjuna in the clearing. He said that when he played at his best, there was no him playing. There was only the music. He had disappeared into the thing he was doing so completely that the ordinary sense of being a person doing something had dissolved, and what remained was just the doing, pure and unobstructed. Musicians call it being in the zone. Athletes call it the flow state. Scientists who study human performance call it peak experience. The name changes, but the description is always the same: the disappearance of everything except the thing itself, the complete absorption of the self into the moment, the sensation of extraordinary capability emerging from extraordinary presence. This is what Drona was teaching. And the thing that makes his lesson so radical is that he did not teach it by explaining it. He did not lecture his students about the importance of focus. He did not give them a talk about the dangers of distraction. He simply asked a question that made each of them reveal, in their own words, exactly where their minds were. And in revealing where their minds were, they revealed exactly why they could not do what Arjuna could do. The lesson was not delivered to them. The lesson was drawn out of them by a question designed to show them what they were already doing, and what they were not yet capable of stopping. This is the highest form of teaching. Not the transfer of information from one person to another, but the creation of a condition in which the student sees something they were not previously able to see about themselves. Drona was not telling his students that they were distracted. He was showing them the shape and the content of their own distraction, in their own words, so that they could not deny it or argue with it or rationalize it. You said you saw the tree. You said you saw the sky. You said you saw your fellow students. The arrow cannot find the eye of the bird when the mind behind it is in the tree, in the sky, in the company of friends. You have told me where you are. And where you are is not where your arrow needs to go. But here is where the story asks something further of us. Because it would be easy, and it would be wrong, to take Drona's lesson as a lesson in narrowness. As an argument for a kind of obsessive, tunnel vision focus that shuts out everything except the target and calls the shutting out a virtue. This is a misreading that has produced a great deal of harm in the world. The brilliant professional who cannot be present with their family because they have confused their work target with the only thing worth seeing, the athlete whose singular focus on performance has starved every other dimension of their humanity, the person who has learned to concentrate so fiercely on what they are pursuing that they have forgotten to notice who they are becoming in the pursuit. Arjuna's focus in the clearing is not a permanent state. It is not a personality. It is a capacity, a tool that he has developed and that he deploys in the moment when it is needed and withdraws when it is not. The rest of the time, Arjuna lives a full life. He loves people. He makes mistakes. He feels fear and doubt and grief and joy in a breadth and depth that is evident throughout the Mahabharata. His ability to see only the eye of the bird at the moment of release does not make him blind to everything else at every other moment. It makes him free. Free to be fully in whatever moment he is in, because he has learned to choose where his attention goes rather than letting it be pulled in every direction by everything that happens to present itself. This is the real lesson. Not focus as a narrowing. Focus as a choice. The ability to decide, consciously and deliberately, what this moment is for and what it requires, and then to be completely in it, completely with it, and then to release it when it is done and be completely in the next one. The eye of the bird when you are at the bow. Your child's face when you are with your child. The conversation when you are in the conversation. The meal when you are at the table. The silence when you are in the silence. Fully here, wherever here is. Never half somewhere else. This sounds simple. It is not simple. It is perhaps the most demanding practice a human being can undertake, because everything about modern life, and a great deal about ancient human psychology long before modern life existed, works against it. The mind's default mode is wandering. Scientists studying the default mode network of the brain, the neural systems that are active when the mind is not directed at a specific task, have found that people spend roughly 47% of their waking hours thinking about something other than what they are doing. Nearly half of every life is spent somewhere other than where the life is actually happening. And according to the same research, this mind-wandering is consistently associated with lower levels of happiness, not because the thoughts are necessarily negative but simply because being absent from your own life is, at the most fundamental level, a form of suffering. Drona knew this. He had no neuroscience and no data about default mode networks. He had something older and in some ways more precise. He had decades of watching human beings try to do difficult things, and he had noticed, with the clarity of a great observer, what the ones who could do the difficult things had that the others did not. And it was not talent, though talent helped. It was not strength, though strength helped. It was not even years of practice, though years of practice helped. It was the ability to be where the arrow needed them to be, fully and completely, at the moment the arrow needed them to be there. The wooden bird has not moved. It is still in the tree. The eye is still the eye. The arrow is still the arrow. The only question, the same question Drona asked in that ancient clearing and the same question that is available to any of us in any moment, is where are you right now? What do you see? Is it the tree and the sky and the other students and the long list of everything else that demands a piece of your attention? Or is it the eye of the bird? Because the arrow goes where the mind goes. Always. Without exception. Without fail. And the mind goes only where you allow it to go. You are the archer. The question has always been the same. What do you see? See only what matters in this moment. Release. And watch where it lands.